Minnesota Vikings have been around since 1961. And I just want them to win a damn Super Bowl before I die. Welcome to Before I Die with Jessi and Myles on Purple Daily and Score North.
Just one Lombardi before we all die. What's going on, everybody? This is Before I Die, brought to you on Purple Daily and Score North. I'm Jessi Pierce, writer for NHL.com, also loving football, official football mom this season as I've got the youngin' in flag football. He hates the contact, you guys. So we're working on that. We're working to teach him that that's part of the game that we all love. To my right, we'll go right. Myles. We've got Myles Gorham. Myles, what's going on, buddy? Tell us why you love the Minnesota Vikings.
What's going on? And you said my name right. We're off to a great start. I'm going to get my son into flag probably this next summer. So he's really excited about it. My daughter's wearing her Justin Jefferson jersey today to daycare. So we're all ready for Vikings. I love the Minnesota Vikings because I grew up. Both my parents, my mom's from Texas, my dad's from North Carolina. They came to Minnesota, and my dad decided, because they didn't have a Carolina team back then, the Vikings are my team, and that kind of just became it. And I've broken my heart. It's broken my heart ever since. But I love them, so I can't die. Chris Carter was the reason I really got into Minnesota Vikings football. So that was a big thing for me. I wore 80 all through middle school, high school. So big thing for me.
Did we find the footage of Adam Thielen and you going up against each other? I know people in the comments were on the hunt for it. I'm looking forward to finding that.
I couldn't find it because I couldn't. And maybe I just didn't try. And that'll probably be
That's probably it.
It probably will never resurface.
Luckily, we have our producer, Ross Brendel, who could probably help us dig it up. And Ross, remind everybody why you love the purple pain.
Well, the pain lets me know that I'm still alive. Hello. Happy football week to you, Jessi and Myles. One quick thing I just need to comment on. You said the kiddo hates the contact. Yes. How much contact is there in flag football?
There's more. There's a little
bit of contact.
There's a little bit of aggression, trying to grab the flag. There was one little guy who pushed him pretty good, and then of course he pushes him back, and it was a whole meltdown. Again, these are kindergartners up to second grade, so there's a little variety. But I'm that is football. That's what we love about football. Get on the gridiron, get a little dirty, get a little physical. All sports are going to have some physical.
But you gotta teach your son with the moves. That's what flag's for. Is about the moves,
right? He's liking defense. He's got a defensive set mind. He's learned okay. Well, if they get the ball, I just got a quick switch to defense. So that's kind of where he's vibing, which I'm all for. But we're working on the routes. We'll have him running with the dog soon because the dog can run a route real well. I think that's what's going to help. From
an outsider's perspective, Jessi, it seems like your kid may be handling this like Mike Zimmer and everybody else is the NFL and the Minnesota Vikings.
You know, that's true. Let's talk about Mike Zimmer. What a segue there from our producer, Ross. I love that. In case you guys missed it, Zimmer had sat down. He's now the defensive coordinator in Dallas, sat down for a one-on-one with the Star Tribune, and he went all Mike Zimmer on us. He unloaded a lot of the baggage. The biggest takeaway I had from the piece, and if you guys haven't read it again, you can find it on the Star Tribune, is that Mike Zimmer still blames everybody else for the problems in Minnesota and doesn't really look in the mirror and take any accountability. I think that was my biggest issue. I also kind of have a love-hate relationship with coaches airing out their grievances. We obviously dealt with it with Flores and Tua as of late during camp. I kind of move on, right? I get it's a storyline, it's there, but move on, man. We've moved on. We've moved on from Zim. We're all in on KOC. Myles, what did you take away from Zim's unloading?
It wasn't surprising. I think a lot of it, what it did is just repurposed or solidified all the information that came out after Zim and Spielman got fired. All that information that came out of them not talking, all the bad culture and stuff as Zim was leaving the door, it just reiterated that was real. That was true. It wasn't just because sometimes you hear things, you hear rumors and you're is that real? Can you corroborate it? All those things. This definitely corroborated a lot of everything we heard. But I also wasn't surprised to hear Zim deflect and not take responsibility or blame and just not, it just was everything we had heard Zim do especially the last 2 years as the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. But the one thing for me that really stood out is for me, it was more of an indictment on Rick Spielman And I say that because like we knew what Zimmer was. Like I think Zimmer, like the one thing, like to all of his faults, Zimmer's a very open and honest person. He's very much like I'm going to tell you like it is, even if it's whether it's like real or not. But with Rick Spielman, there was a small chance, there was a close chance that he was going to stay on as GM. And I feel like that would have been a bad move. And I'm glad like a lot of that stuff came to surface, that it probably allowed ownership to really understand that this wasn't just a Mike Zimmer problem. It was also a Rick Spielman problem. And so like them to just like completely gut that, you know, that front office in terms of GM and head coach both instead of just the one. I think to me, it just reiterates that like you can't let your GM just kind of be the dictator and be the person that like decides and has all the decision-making power in a process. And if they'd hired, you know, Kevin O'Connell as Rick Spielman with a GM, who knows what the process would look like right now. But at least, you know, they got their fresh start. And that to me was like one of the bigger things that I took away from it was like Rick Spielman probably doesn't get enough heat in how how things ended in Minnesota as much as Mike does, because we know Mike was very open about it.
Well, it was an organizational problem. The structure was not in place. I love that Mike Zimmer walked out on Rick Spielman when he took Kellen Mond. That is probably the best. Ross, I want you to know, if you do something I don't agree with, I'm just going to walk out and I'm just not going to talk about it. And then I'm probably going to mock you as he did Kellen Mond. That's something. That's a power move a little bit. I kind of dig it.
I hope it's mid-show, too. Like, I just do something that you disapprove of. You just walk out, and it's poor Myles is left to carry the bag with just me, which I openly admit I don't think would be good for anybody. The only thing that I'll add, I think Myles laid it out very well. The only thing that I will add is kind of an extension of what Myles talked about. I think Zimmer coming out swinging like this, if that's the term you want to use, is probably the least surprising thing ever. I think what might be surprising is that it took this long, but now that he's back in the league and has a job, he probably feels like he can't really burn any more bridges. He has a job, and heck, for all we know with Dallas, he may be the head coach in waiting if things start slow with Dallas this year. I'm not saying he'll be the head coach for the long term in Dallas, but he's the logical replacement this year if something happens with Mike McCarthy. The only thing that really also didn't even really surprise me, but it's good to see it affirmed, is that the guys, they just don't talk. They haven't talked since they were both let go. You know, I mean, wouldn't you at least run into each other somewhere with how active they both are still in the NFL and even in the world of that realm? You would think you'd bump into each other.
It's one of those, like you see someone from high school at the grocery store and you actively avoid. Yes, that's exactly what that is. But I feel like if Zim bumped into Spielman, he might swing, right? That's the kind of like mentality Zim has for me. Like he might swing on Rick Spielman.
I dig that. I like that animosity. We're coming in swinging with the Minnesota Vikings, who are undefeated. You're undefeated Minnesota Vikings as of right now. Let's not forget that. They face the Giants on Sunday at noon. Cannot wait, you guys. So excited because football is officially back. There's no more waiting. Saturday, I had college football on all day. It felt good, guys. It's rival week for Iowa State. Go Cyclones. I had to get that in there just once. Big week against Iowa. But let's talk about our Vikings predictions. All right. Again, clean slate this year. We've got a healthy team. We're looking okay. What, Myles, is your number one Vikings prediction before we start here in week one?
These are always tough because when you like think of predictions, you're like, okay, what do I have to go too bold? Do I have to go like very conscious? Like I try to stay even keel. I try to stay realistic, as we say. I think my number one prediction is I think this team will be in the hunt throughout the season. I think they're going to be in the playoff hunt throughout the season. I think you're going to get enough from Sam Darnold, and I think the defense is going to be better than expected because of all the pieces they've been able to add. So I think my prediction is somewhere in that, like, I'm just going to say I think they're a wild card team. Like I could see them being a wild card playoff team. And that's like my best case scenario for this team. We've seen, and I'll finish by saying we've seen in the franchise, the Minnesota Vikings franchise in the history, we've seen so many teams make the playoffs with mediocre, like random quarterbacks, whether it's the Case Keenums, the Christian Ponders, you take it back to Tavares Jackson, you take it even further back to like the 90s, you know, with random quarterbacks the Vikings were having every other year. Brad Johnsons, Warren Moons, and like all these types of quarterbacks, like just random quarterbacks coming into the Minnesota Vikings for a year or two. And they randomly like have a spike year where they go to the playoffs. And so like, I kind of feel like I wouldn't be surprised if Sam Darnold was a guy that they go to the playoffs with.
How many wins?
I'm gonna. Let's say 10. I'll say 10.
Whew.
But I'm closer to 9. But I'm just gonna say 10 for the sake of like being a wild card team. And I'm gonna let my dog in real quick. Be right back.
You know what? You do your thing. We'll switch gear. Ross, 10 wins from Myles. Do you think that's doable? And what, in addition, what is your Vikings related prediction?
I think the NFL, it's doable in the sense that the NFL is unpredictable. Do I believe that they'll win 10 games? No, not really. But I also trust Kevin O'Connell and the staff that I think he'll put them in a position to win games. It's just, will they be able to finish and do that? To Myles's point, with the defense, hopefully trending logically, maybe better than the offense. Hopefully they can steal some games defensively.
Mm-hmm.
10 seems lofty to me, but hey, that would be great for everybody. So I'm cheering for it. And to me, before I move on to point number 1 for me, or prediction number 1 for me, that's the beauty of the Vikings season, at least for me. I've heard people make the argument the other way. I think every Vikings game this year, if the team wins, great. If they lose, okay, whatever. I mean, it's for me, it's a transition year. Doesn't mean you can't have success and do things this year and maybe be a playoff team, but I'm not going to be super disappointed with any losses this year, except for maybe losses to Green Bay. I got one to follow up on Myles here, and I'd love your guys' thoughts on this. This is a bit of a negative prediction, and I'm not going to really quantify how or why. I do not believe Sam Darnold will start all 17 games for the Minnesota Vikings. And why? History would tell you he won't. He's never started every game in an NFL season. Yeah. So it could be due to injury. It could be due to poor performance. But until he does, I'm going to go ahead and say Sam Darnold will not start all 17 games for the Minnesota Vikings this year. My gut says it could end up being more performance related. But if it's more performance related, I'll be honest, he's the best on the roster. So if you feel like you have to bench him, how far off the rails could this thing be?
You know what? I don't disagree with that. Because as you just said, Ross, and as we talked about a little bit last week in our first episode, I don't need the Vikings to necessarily be good this year. I don't need that. I don't need to see mediocrity even. I just need, go out there, do what you want to do, but I don't need them to be good. I'm okay with that. Yes, I want to beat the Packers. That's probably the only team on the schedule that I feel this innate sense of like, I need that win. I need that victory. But the rest, I'm like, meh, we'll see. Again, not saying the T word. I'm not suggesting they blow games by any stretch, but I don't need the mediocrity. That goes for all of the Minnesota teams. Minnesota Wild, I hope you're listening as well. I don't need mediocrity anymore. I just need to admit where we're at. And again, it's in that transitional phase. So if that means Sam Darnold needs to sit and we got to get some other arms slinging, that would be okay with me. I got to say, because I need the ball slinging to my boy JJ, because my Vikings prediction is 2,000 yards. Justin Jefferson will get 2,000 receiving yards this year. I'm feeling it. I'm sure that's a goal of his. That's always a goal of his, right? But as we saw what he did 2 years ago, 1,809 yards, offensive player of the year honors. I like it. I like Jamar Chase kind of yapping, saying he wants to outdo the contract that JJ's got. I think that gets in JJ's head because he's going to go out and prove it. And I know he was disappointed last year dealing with the injury, so it's going to be a huge bounce back. Justin Jefferson, 2K, baby. That's what I
even with all the turmoil happening at quarterback?
It's happening. It's going to happen. I just need someone to get the ball to Justin. That's all you need to do. He's also on my fantasy team, so that's even fair. More important. That's even fair. More important. Yeah. 2,000.
If he hits 2,000 yards, that's another sign that this team is closer to the 10 wins that Myles predicted at the very beginning here of the predictions. So
it's fine. You can still lose.
Just throwing it 100 times a game.
Exactly.
I would argue very quickly for you two, though, this year, if you are 7-10, 8-9, I would argue of all the years to be in the middle and be mediocre, that's a good sign for this team. It kind of stinks to be there, but of all the seasons to be stuck in the middle, this wouldn't be the worst in the world. It shows that the roster's in a decent spot. But, I said this, I think, last week with you guys. You can make a case it would be better for this team to be 5-12.
Yeah.
See, I said that last year because once Kirk got hurt, you were already, just under 500 or about, I think they had just got 500 that Packer game. and then Kirk goes down and JJ was already hurt. That was my thing last year. Like, what's the point? Now this year, I don't fully agree, and I'm in the idea that it's okay if they're not great. I don't expect them to be like a top tier team this year, but I think there's too much talent, and they've done too much across the board to allow to be like a bad team. Right. Yeah. And I know we talk about mediocrity. I'm with you, Jessi. I don't like playing that middle ground. I can't stand it because that's all the Vikings have ever really done is play this like middle and then randomly have spike years where they're great and then bad again or mediocre again. I want consistency, like good consistency year over year. But I just feel like there's too much talent on this team to just like roll over and die, if that makes sense. And so I just feel like I would maybe be more disappointed in the fact that they're not competing for a playoff spot. I'm not expecting them to have to be a playoff team, but I feel like if they're not close to being one by end of year, what does that tell you about the rest of the talent around the roster and the coaching staff? That's where I just have questions about it. I love KOC. I think he's a great coach moving forward for this team and like now, but like because I do want to get into JJ next year and beyond. I'm excited for that, but like, I just want like the coaching staff to like show that like, hey, like, yes, it is about the quarterback, but we have a lot of really good pieces around that quarterback for when he do insert him next year, that like we have a lot of building blocks to build off of for next year. And that's where I'm also excited about this year.
I was going to say then on that, Myles, what pieces are you excited to have highlighted and what pieces do you need to see or what areas do you need to see the success in? As we'd mentioned, quarterback, it is what it is at this point, right? Yeah. But are you looking at the run game a little bit? Are we looking at how our receivers are doing? What is the highlight or what areas do you need to see success to say, hey, this team is built for the playoffs in 2 years, maybe?
Yeah, it is definitely the run game for me on offense because I feel like it's not just like the players back there. I'm a big Aaron Jones fan. Again, hate that he played for the Packers for so long. But I just think he's a really good player. I just don't think the first 2 years of the Kevin O'Connell era, they've been able to like marry up their run game scheme. And so I feel like hopefully they can kind of finally have something that's consistent and like better than it's been. So run game for sure on offense. Defense, I want to see more true like pressures without like always having it to be off of like, because last year Flores had to blitz a lot because they didn't have the personnel. My hope is they can get home with like 4 or 5 rather than the constant like blitzing pressures and having to take all the pressure off of the cornerback, put all the pressure on the cornerbacks. I mean, so my hope is like that's where we're at. I'm hoping that there's a little bit more like true 3 down, like base defense pressures from the defense. And so I just want to see it more often from those guys and like a rotation on the defensive line. Maybe we see like a Levi Drake Rodriguez, really like explode this year as a rookie. Like we see some of those guys really take those steps to be building blocks. The cornerbacks are obviously like it's hard to like build off of anything long-term with the current cornerbacks because the 3 starters aren't under contract for next year. So it's like, I want them to play well, but I wouldn't really call them building blocks for the future. They're about like placeholders. So I'd say the defensive line on defense and then run game on offense.
I like that. Ross, what are your thoughts? What needs to be good this year for you to continue to have faith that we will have one Super Bowl before we die?
Well, I think one of the things would be Dallas Turner and his progression and his growth and what he does. Excuse me. And I think this is tough to say because of what happened, but I think you'd like to get through the rest of the year without any major injuries to your building blocks going forward, whether that be Christian Darrisaw having a nice, healthy year, Brian O'Neill having a nice, healthy year, no setbacks with J.J. McCarthy, and again, Dallas Turner. I think that's going to be the big one for me. I think we all assume he's going to be pretty good and really good, but I would like to see that. And I would overall, this is such a dumb thing to say, but independent of results, I would just like to be healthy. And I'd also like to know that we have found a kicker that we feel like we can trust. I think we have, but we'll see when the games actually matter. So I think those are the 2 things because place kicking is incredibly important. We all know it. So I want to have faith in the kicker, and I just want to get through the year as healthy as possible because, when you have injuries in a transition year, it's probably not the end of the world, but you do lose that progression. And J.J. McCarthy's still going to do a lot of learning and growing behind the scenes, But man, it would have been nice to see him get some game reps at some point and also just be the true number 2, be well immersed in the offense, and that's not going to happen. So I want no more catastrophic injuries, and I want to be able to trust the kicker.
How much emphasis are we going to be putting on Jordan Addison this season? Obviously, he's still questionable heading into week 1. What do we need to see from him? I think there's obviously no doubt that it adds to that depth behind JJ, but is Addison kind of a guy that we're all looking at saying, hey, we need another breakout year just to know you are for sure the real deal? And as Ross mentioned, health, man. Give me a healthy freaking team for a change.
Please.
Yes. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think Addison has to show because of his off the field issues. They obviously need to end. They got to stop. Dude, stop driving. But at the same time, if you're going to have any sort of questions, you have to what do we always say? Teams always ride with guys because of talent. So you have to show that the talent is worth some of the headaches. And obviously we hope those headaches go away, by the way. But yeah, he needs to show it. And I also think that just goes to show that we need crazy if anybody needs his draft picks to continue to hit, because we know coming out of that 2022 draft and where everything is set, it's been a struggle. So we need Addison and we need some of those other draft picks and guys like Ivan Pace. Ross mentioned, Turner this year, really need those guys to really pick it up and step up to show that there's building blocks.
All right. We talked about health, which means we're going to talk about injury prevention as well. Ross, do you have anybody that we could call for such a thing?
You thought my segue at the beginning of the show was great. I think that one just matched it, if not better. I do. It's our friends at Nicolay Law. A quick shout out to the exclusive personal injury law firm of Purple Daily. By now it's Nicolay Law. Nicolay Law knows that when you or a loved one gets injured, ordinary life can come to a stop, and we don't want that. Things can get complicated. That's where the folks at Nicolay Law come in. They're just normal, everyday folks, the ones you see at the gas station, walking the dog, letting the dog in like Myles just had to do, or at your local watering hole. Normal, everyday folks who are here to make sure you get the compensation you deserve after an accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay. Here's how you do that. Start your path to winning at nicolaylaw.com. That's nicolaylaw.com. Or give them a call at 1-855-NICOLAY. That's NICOLET. Jessi?
I love it. Give them a call. Give them a ring. Give them a jingle. Sort of like we want to give the Super Bowl a jingle too. That was a terrible segue. I apologize. I immediately regret that. Boo, boo this person. Boo. But that's all right. We're going to do Super Bowl predictions now, because why not? Why not? I'm going to predict the New York Jets are going to be playing in the Super Bowl, because my boy Breece Hall, who played for Iowa State, Breece Hall, go Cyclones. They're going to be, it's not an Aaron Rodgers thing. But the Jets are going to be mighty good if Aaron Rodgers doesn't affect the culture in that locker room, because it sounds like they're already kind of getting sick of his quote unquote lack. But it's Aaron Rodgers. You guys knew this. You knew this. What did you expect from this man? Breece Hall, though, loving it. I think the Jets are playing for the Super Bowl. I haven't figured out my other team, so while I mull on that, Myles, what do you got for Super Bowl predictions?
I can't bet against the Chiefs. I just feel like they're just too much of a powerhouse. They've been too good. They've continue to load up and find steals in the draft. Yeah. I saw that. That's my AFC team for sure. NFC team is a little bit of more of a toss up for me. I'm going to go with the Eagles because I think they're going to have a bounce back. I think they just always find ways to bring in a lot of talent. They brought in better depth at cornerback and DB, and they were able to kind of reload from an already talented roster. So I'm going to go with the Eagles against the Chiefs in a Super Bowl rematch from 2 years ago. And yeah, I don't know.
It's not crazy.
It's not. It's not out of the box. It is. I thought about going with the Texans just because I do like CJ Stroud. I know everybody's in Minnesota, the Stephon Diggs thing. I'm a big Stephon Diggs fan though. So I wouldn't hate to see the Texans either, but I just don't know if anybody could beat the Chiefs right now.
Seems fair. Ross, what you got?
Well, first off, shameless plug, we'll return comments from YouTube next week. So if you want to comment on your Super Bowl predictions below or really anything, please do that if you're watching on the YouTube machine. I really like Kansas City too, but for the sake of being different, excuse me, I'm all choked up being amongst the greatness of Jessi and Myles today.
Alex. I'm not Alex today.
No, not today. You're
nailed it.
Alex has been retired, Myles. Alex has been retired in my mind. I like Cincinnati. I like Cincinnati to come out of the AFC. It's not really an anti-Chiefs thing. It's more of just, can you continue to do this year after year with the toll a deep playoff run takes on your body? Maybe they can because they have perhaps the greatest quarterback of all time. Still need to see more Super Bowls to pass Tom Brady to say that, but I think we all understand how great he is. So I'll go with Cincinnati and Joe Cool. And to your point, Myles, the NFC, I think, is a toss-up, but I don't think it's as much of a toss-up as we think it is. Going into the year, if I can trust Dan Campbell, and I'm still not sure I can, but if I can, I think Detroit's the most talented team in the NFC. So it's going to be tough to bet against that, as much as that's going to pain me. I was not on this Detroit Lions love like everybody else was last year. I don't want to see a team in my division win the Super Bowl. It's also terrifying when you think it could also be possible that the two best teams in the NFC might be the Lions and Packers. That's also annoying. We'll see how that plays out. But I'm going to go with Cincinnati and Detroit. And just because I can't deal with the pain of Detroit beating the Vikings to winning a Super Bowl before the Vikings do, I'll take the Bengals over the Lions.
Detroit was going to be my NFC team too after I thought about it more. I love
also,
me some DC. I love Amon-Ra. I like Detroit. It's hard to discredit them.
Just thinking about this out loud, how much would the NFL hate a Bengals and Lions Super Bowl, by the way?
Yeah.
Because somebody's getting their first Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yep.
They're just two small markets. They're not going to love that.
Nope, not at all. I'm going to say the Jets beat the Lions. Actually, no. I'll give the Lions the victory over the Jets, mostly just for the heartbreak of Aaron Rodgers too, because that just would feel good. It still feels good, right?
I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Also, I think Myles and I can learn a thing or two from you, because on-air production meeting, I sent this note last night and told everybody, hey, come with your Super Bowl predictions. Jessi, although I'm kind of outing you, didn't have them. So her way to look smart was to only give half of them, make us go, and then swoop in at the end.
Obviously, like those are terrible.
Very well played, Jessi. Some would say that's a very school-like move, a back-to-school-like move.
You're exposing trade secrets. This is why I've been successful or unsuccessful, depending on your opinion of me. But I mean, it happens. That's good.
I'm just trying to get you to walk out on the show.
It'll happen.
I want to see what that looks like.
Speaking of, we need people to be kinder, by the way, just in general. Like, can people be kinder? Like, can we be nice to each other? Like,
this is the internet, Myles. It's
I know.
Not
I know.
All right.
I know. I'm just I don't know you. You don't know me. Like, we don't, like, not you guys. I'm talking like these random people. Like, you don't need to be mean to people for no reason. I just can't stand that stuff.
So I've talked about this before, and I want people to comment and engage.
Yeah, for sure.
I look at it this way, and I say this to everybody. If you want to take a shot at me, that's fine. I don't know you. I'll probably never know you. And by the way, if you take a shot at me, I don't really care. I think like next to zero of that. Yes. Now, if you give a good comment or good constructive criticism, I actually do value that. And if you say something nice, that's awesome. But if you take a shot at any one of us, I give it literally zero attention.
So, I only do, but if it's hilarious, if I could have a witty comeback to it too, I live.
If they're funny, yes. I'm all about the humor for sure.
Yeah, exactly. If you take a funny comment at me, like I look like Ralphie ate Ralphie from A Christmas Story, that's fine. I agree with that.
Did someone say that?
No, but that's definitely coming. Not
yet. Now it's coming. Yeah, not yet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, quick reminder for you two, by the way. St. Thomas football is back on 1500 ESPN and 1500ESPN.com. Saturday, it's a border battle with Northern Iowa from O'Shaughnessy Stadium. Pregame at 12:30, kickoff at 1 on AM 1500, 1500 ESPN, and 1500ESPN.com right hither in the Twin Cities.
It's a lot of purple in that stadium then, isn't UNI? Purple and yellow, I believe, right?
Tommy's looking to get right after a rough opener against Sioux Falls College last weekend.
That's all right. Go Tommies. Get at it.
Time now for the Before I Die crew to give us their Before I Dies.
Not even a chance to intro the segment, but here we go. Before I die.
I thought I timed it perfectly.
I'm not going first. I'm not going first, Jessi.
All right. I'll kick it off this week. Before I die, all of our elite stars, young talent in the state of Minnesota. You know how we love the one love, one Minnesota. So you've got Anthony Edwards, you've got Justin Jefferson, you've got Kirill Kaprizov over the Minnesota Wild. I'd say Royce Lewis probably fits that criteria for the Minnesota Twins. I'm sorry, I don't know much about soccer, but I would include them because if you guys saw, there was the Anthony Edwards, Justin Jefferson recreation of the famous KG Randy Moss photo shoot. Love that. But before I die, I want to see all those superstars together, and I want them, this is for the content only, to try each other's sports. I want to get Justin Jefferson on the ice. Now, I'm not saying play a game, right? I don't want to cause injury. Yes. I want him to be Kirill. I want Kirill behind the bat at Target Field. I want Anthony Edwards on the football field. Anthony Edwards looked like he could play football. Yeah. He probably did, right? Like he's got the.
That's what, if you had said Ant for hockey, I want to see that. I could see that.
I'd see any of them. I want make a rotation of it. This is great content. I'm giving this for free to all my social media and content people for all the teams out there because I think it would be so much fun to watch. Again, just a quick shoot for the day. Nobody's getting hurt. You're having a good time. Plus, it's a great way to connect all of those sports, all those sports fans. Give it to me. And then you guys can go on and win division conferences and all of that stuff too.
I don't recall seeing footage of this, but if you remember, Marion Barber and Dominic Barber, I believe, played hockey at Plymouth or Minnetonka. Yeah. Imagine being a high school hockey player and those two Adonises of men
brothers
are skating around and they wind up both being very successful college football and NFL players.
I know, right?
That would be terrifying.
I love it.
So you had it in a mild form of that, what, about 20 years ago?
Sure. Well, I think JJ Watt plays hockey too. Like, I mean, there's certain big-bodied boys that are out there playing a little puck. But I just want to see, I think it would be so much fun to watch these guys get out there and try each other's sports. Because it's not easy. As I've seen other athletes, I'll do a hockey connection. Shocking, I know. Matt Boldy made the cut for like a Canadian Open golf tournament. But even he like realized how hard it is to be a professional golfer, right? Like it's nothing like you expect. So it'd be fun. Give it to me.
Quick and easy one for you two. Before I die, left turn lights, whatever you want to call it, when you're stopped red going left and there's literally nobody else in the intersection, you can just go. And I'll be honest, cops in the East Metro, at times I do.
Oh boy.
And I'll be very honest about that. There is a light, Jessi, you might be familiar with it. It is a left red light leaving a certain discount big box retailer. Maybe starts with a C, ends with an Ostco.
Yes.
If you're the only one at that light, I've literally sat there for 3-4 minutes and there's nobody coming in any direction.
It's a tough scene.
I know I'm opening Pandora's box and that's how people get hurt, but you know, why can't the lights just be blinking like a lot of them have turned into with the turn signal?
Or roundabout. Would you appreciate a roundabout? I know that's a very hot button topic. People love or hate them. I don't mind roundabouts, but mostly because they've replaced a lot of terrible intersection lights.
I'm good on the roundabout. The problem is, I think, and this will sound really bad, but everybody maybe about our age and less has no problem with roundabouts.
Yes.
Then there's like a 20-year gap after us where I think people are okay.
Yeah.
And then there's that certain gap where they just don't know how to handle them. And that'll take time. That'll take time. But once we get through that, we're going to be okay. I may just turn my mic off because I realized I just admitted to breaking the law and not liking, also not liking a certain population of people. So I'm done for the day. Have at it, Myles.
We talk about being nice, and there's Ross being like, no, I hate all of you. I've been struggling with this one because so my son starts kindergarten on Thursday, and I'm like terrified / like excited / all of the feelings, right? As a parent, it's my oldest. And then I talk about and then there's the Anthony Edwards, Justin Jefferson stuff that comes out, and I'm just like, do I make it personal? Do I make it sports related? It's always like that.
Yeah.
So for me, before I die, I just, besides the Vikings, I want to see the Timberwolves put it all together this year and close it out and win it all like that. Obviously the Vikings, but the Timberwolves are such a good team. Anthony Edwards, you finally have that cornerstone player that once in a generational player again that we had in KG. But I think Ant kind of takes it to another level because he's a guard who can control the ball a little bit more. So there's a little bit more ability, in terms of how you control pace of the game. And I just think you finally found that guy and take it home. You have a great roster. I think they had a great offseason. Before I die, just give it to me, the Timberwolves this year. I think it's this year. I think they're going to put it all together. And I know I'm setting myself up for failure, but we're Minnesota fans. That's what we do.
Just heartbreak. Do you think they're the closest?
Yes.
To an actual, right? Would you guys? I would agree with that.
I think it's the Timberwolves by way up here, and then the rest of Minnesota sports right now. That's what it feels like.
But without that, we wouldn't have this show Before I Die. Yes. Again, that's going to do it for this week's episode. We're all feeling the pain, but maybe not. Week 1 starts on Sunday. Thank you to everybody for checking us out. Don't forget to listen to all of our other Purple Daily content, all the other content on Score North. We will be back next Monday as per usual. Go Vikings.
Hennepin.